The Art of Pricing. My name is Talia, your host, and we are excited to talk about conferences today. We have Annie Holcombe from Lexicon, Kim Hermon.
Hermon.
Yep, from Big Bear Vacations, April Burns from IC&D. I have to tell you, I've been practicing saying IC&D since I met Vanessa in Destin a month ago. Because I'm like, I can't remember InterCoastal Net Design, and everyone says IC&D, but for some reason, like the acronym was not resonating in my head. So I'm proud of myself. I got that right without looking at it. So today we are talking about making the most out of conferences. This is, I think, a topic near and dear to many of our hearts. And actually, I got home at 2 a.m. this morning from VRMA in Breckenridge last night. So I am like fresh off a conference day, man. It feels like I'm fresh off a conference day too. But I'm so excited to talk about this. And, you know, we are a month and a half away from like full blown conference season.
Yeah, really.
How many conferences are y'all going to, or like a range y'all know of?
At least 3.
Yeah, I think we've got about 10.
Okay, you win.
So I keep on my fridge a little dry erase board, so me and my husband know when things are coming up. And so I went and I put the travel time and all the dates that are there, and they build up half of it. And everyone that keeps coming over, they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's whenever I don't live here in September and October."
I told my husband the same thing. I'm like, "I'll see you at Christmas."
Yeah, I'll be back, with you guys. I'll be back here later. Hope my little baby doesn't, forget me. Just kidding. He'll be fine. I'm thinking about actually bringing him to the women's conference with me. And having my husband will be there too, so he won't be there the whole time. But I think he'd be so fun to run around in maybe a little Chippendales costume. So anyway. That's my idea. If anyone watching has a child and wants to join in on a child party when we're in there, I think Amy said, we could do baby date night. Wouldn't that be funny? Anyway, I'm going off on tangent, but it's conferences. I'm not really. How do we go to conferences, still see our family in those 2 months?
Right.
But I'm so excited. It's what conferences, I think we can all say this, we're conference veterans. It is like seeing family we haven't seen in almost 2 years. It's just so surreal being with everyone again and just having these conversations. And it was yesterday when I was there, so many people that I realized the last time they saw me, I was 8 months pregnant. So it was asking you just, it was not your typical conversations. But what we wanted to talk about today is making the most of the conference season on 2 different perspectives, right? So we're going to talk about this from your vendor perspective and your property management perspective. So, that way everyone can get most out of it. I think we know a lot of vendors were property managers. A lot of property managers become vendors at some point in time. So it's a very there's a lot of crosses in it that it makes sense on how to make it the most out of it for everyone in it. So first thing I wanted to talk about is setting goals for conferences, which I think during our practice session yesterday, we all realized that was a very loaded, a loaded thing. And I think we answered everything that we wanted to talk about in that one question. So April, let's start with you. What would be your thought, your first thought on setting goals for conferences?
Well, I think the first thing would be to review the schedule beforehand. Try to get an idea of where you would like to go, what you'd like to see, so then that way you can take your team and divide and conquer the different sessions versus the vendor hall, etc. And one of our guys had a great suggestion. He said, whenever you're walking around the vendor hall, take photos of the vendors or the area that you're in. So then that way you can associate that vendor, that name, and what they were, maybe what you were discussing with them, because that's going to help trigger that memory where maybe, because you're going to be so overwhelmed with, I mean, especially for international, you have 500 vendors or whatever it might be. So it's going to be very overwhelming, but that allows you to kind of associate that face of the name. So I think that would be my first tip. And then the other part to that would be pack light, because you're going to come away with a lot of swag.
That is a really great tip. I mean, you come home with so much stuff, and bring a little extra tote bag, or go find one. That's the first thing you find, and then you put all your stuff in it. But remember, you have to get home with it. I really love that picture idea, like so much. I mean, from the PM or the vendor perspective of that, right? Like even like I mean, if you talk to someone and everyone wants pictures and stuff, and you know you want to like, hey, let's take a quick picture together. You could also do that because I have like a couple cards from yesterday, right? And I wrote like 2 words is supposed to remind me what I'm supposed to do with the card after. But now that I think about it, I should have taken a picture. And we also talked about this yesterday. Not sure why I didn't think about that while I was at the conference. And what I also, wanted to point out, you say like review the schedule ahead of time. This also goes for the vendor and the PM. In there. I admittedly, we all know I'm an open book, very bad at reviewing the schedule ahead of time other than knowing what time I need to be there. And I get there and then I scramble around like, how am I going to make my day, how am I going to get the most out of my day? When honestly planning ahead of time, I'd be able to really figure that out, divide and conquer with my team, where we're going to go and make a plan. Kim, I think I want to hear your perspective on like, how does your team like get started on this?
Yeah, so I mean, the same that April said too. I mean, we absolutely review the schedule. Who do we want to network with? We look over the list of the attendees. Who are the people that we as a company need to meet with? What are our company's current needs? What are our weaknesses? Where do we need to make those strides? Who do we need to meet with? What's new and upcoming, because that's something that we always like to look for. Just making sure that we're bringing back the most that we can to our company, because obviously it costs a lot to send our teams out to conferences, and just making sure that we're meeting with the right people and gaining the right knowledge.
Right. And we talked about the ROI on conferences yesterday, right? And I think there another 2 ways. Everything today is 2 ways to look at it. 2 ways, like if this is just a vacation for your team, cool. Like vacation networking event, define it as that to yourself and your team, and that way you're not like, oh, what should I be doing, where should I be doing more? Actually, I thought we were just here for fun. I thought this was a team retreat. That way if you can relax or not. And then if like we need to go, and this is like, these are the things we need to do, and this is what we're trying to solve for. So we need to meet with these people because these are the places that we're struggling. And I think that is, a big point is like setting that goal, articulating those goals, and dividing and conquering. Annie, you had great perspectives on this yesterday too, about like you approaching it. You got to approach it for yourself versus the team too. And how do you look at that?
Yeah, so I think just, you mentioned we've all been to conferences for so many years. I was on the hotel side and the vendors, the PM side for a really long time. I was at the OTA side, where we had giant teams, and then kind of at the startup side where you're by yourself. And so I think that there's a couple of different ways you can approach it. But again, going back to April's point of, you really need to make sure you review the schedule. But then if you are by yourself, network with the people that are kind of in your competitive set. They're your friends. Talk to them, ask them for introductions, offer them introductions. I think that it goes 2 ways. And then if you are taking a team, have everybody look at what their top accounts are that are going to be there, and then maybe their top targets, and cross collaborate in terms of getting introductions. And I love the idea, again, going to the booth and taking pictures. I think going and taking pictures with prospects and then being able to send them a note saying, hey, it was great to meet you. Loved your crazy tie that you wore, or something. I mean, I think people try to do as much fun stuff as they can through the event, and any way that you can make yourself stand out afterwards is really important. But it just takes a team effort to kind of just go through. And again, I said it yesterday, people are going to do business with people they know, like, and they trust. And the way to build that trust is to get to know people. And it takes time. And it's not always going to be the first time you meet a person. It could be 6 years from now that you meet somebody and they come to you, a big PMC will come to you and say, I have 10,000 rooms I want to give you. And for all of us, that's the magic, but it's so I think it's just about, again, keeping things realistic. Don't try to overdo it.
Right. Exactly. And also like, if you are by yourself, right, you say like, and you want to get the most out of it, you have team members on the ground, unless you're a company of one, and you have team members on the ground, like you, like have them help you out, right? Like you said, like getting key accounts, setting up deals, not setting up deals, I'm sorry, setting up conversations and these things, and, you know, just getting connections and preparing. The idea is preparing, right? Like, it is all fun and informational and stuff that's going there, but preparation is really, you know, a big key in all of this. You know, everything that everyone said, I'm like, I do rewatch every one of these, but I'm just thinking, I already want to rewatch this so I can take notes for my next conference.
That's okay. I think we all need to.
Right? Like that, like we're doing it, and I'm like, I'm going to tell everyone we need to rewatch this because I'm excited about planning out.
Maybe we network with each other on it, and we network with each other and just double doing what we said.
Exactly. That's what we're here for. So, you know, doing the research and stuff, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that. That's some stuff that Kim was talking about yesterday on the property management level is, you know, you said you're looking at the attendee list and where to connect, and you know, look at processes and procedures and how you can get advice, right? So why reinvent the wheel? You know, it was one of the things we hear all the time. Like, we have so many people in this industry and nobody does it perfect, and everyone has advice to give, and do your research in doing that. So Kim, you were saying like how you kind of sit down with your team and like identify maybe gaps or areas where your struggles and challenges, and then you look for the when you're looking at attendees, people who do this well.
And we absolutely, I think this is what I shared yesterday too, is that we absolutely use like a shared Google Drive with tabs as to each person, what they're working on throughout the day, who they're speaking with, the contacts. So we have all of that firsthand, and it's not after the conference you may forget, you know, oh gosh, that was a really important point that we need to make, or we really need to, you know, make sure that we're in with this company and this is the direction that we need to go. If it's not happening like right at that moment, you're going to forget. And we also do a team wrap up at the end of the night. And you know, if I go to the conference alone, I push it out to my team at the end of the night, although they might not be with me. If they are with me, then we have a roundtable discussion at the end of the night going through our notes.
And we said
so that we can also then add more notes to that,
right?
Knowing that this is the information that we need to take back to our company and then execute plans on.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I think too that with the Google Doc, which I think is really incredible, and I think that Annie, even you said yesterday, that'd be great for even like vendors to use with their team to have that. It's also, again, if you're coming in and you're a smaller company and maybe you don't feel that comfortable with the Google Doc, then again, it goes back to swag. There are so many vendors out there that have notebooks. So maybe take a notebook and then identify that notebook or a certain page on it as your top takeaways or the top items that you want to act on. And then that way you have it right in front of you. You can take a quick note. So if you don't feel comfortable having this Google Doc, then you can also just utilize a notebook and then kind of keep it with you. And then that allows you to also, if you have some team members with you, to challenge them to do the same. And then again, when you meet at night, which I thought that was one of the best tips, is meeting again in the afternoon and really reviewing what you've learned or kind of your key takeaways, because it's fresh and on your mind rather than the third day of the conference when you're exhausted and you're traveling.
Right. We say one of the most important things, remember, at the end of the wrap up, it needs to be before or during drinks, not after. It's got to be a goal that happens in there. But yeah, I use like the notes on my phone.
Yeah.
If I don't have my computer open, it's hard for me to work in Google Docs. I do notes on my phone, but I can easily copy and paste them in there later. And then, like I said, a notepad's great, and you can go and like, even if you do a notepad and you do that wrap up at the end of the night, somebody could be scribing in the Google Doc. That way y'all get all the information in there. That's for that. And I just had like this crazy idea of, on like, even from the vendor and PM perspective, like, what if we if it were just me and Annie at a conference, Lexicon, and Rented, right? We could technically team up, right, on saying what we were trying to get out of it and be like, hey, like, I'm going to go to this session, you go to this session. Will you share your takeaways with me after? Like, vendors and PMs, you could utilize each other, go in this together, do your wrap-ups together. We're there anyway. We're having drinks with each other anyway at the end. I mean, you know, we use that collaboration that we have done so well during the pandemic. And this industry's always done well working together, but the pandemic's put us so much better to, not better, but like optimize really working together, collaborating, sharing information. That was actually a big theme of the conference yesterday. Let's keep doing that, you know, now and supporting each other, because if we build each other up, we're building up the industry at the end of the day. And that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I think over time, we jokingly but seriously say that there are times whenever in the fall and the spring that we see each other more than we see our families, because we're on the road so much and hitting all the different conferences. And so, I mean, we jokingly call the group of people our cramly, because it's our conference friends and families all together. So that's what we end up being.
Oh, the cramly, I love that.
The cramly. And so it's somebody, but I love that suggestion of teaming up together, because again, especially when you do some of what you might think of like the connects or smaller conferences, where it is only one of you maybe attending as a vendor or even as a PM, you could team up with. And that's one thing I always try to recommend to PMs is, if you are in the mountains of North Carolina, you try to look for a company that's in the mountains of California and try to see if they're similar size, similar takeaways, or similar in goals for their clients or guests to come. And then that way you guys can work together, because maybe something that's trending in North Carolina maybe hasn't hit, California or vice versa. And that gives them all those really cool takeaway features to be able to share.
And I kind of remember somebody talking about that yesterday, actually being like, it's so important to know your local market, but it's important to be able to find trends outside of that, because there's things that you can learn. It's the same thing whenever like you work at a company and then they bring someone who's like never been in never been in experience. They're bringing different perspectives. So you got to look at different markets as well. And that's why we are such a large community. We also talked about, which I've never been a property manager, so interested to see hear like examples from people yesterday. It's like, from a property manager's perspective, when you just define the vendors you want to talk to, I guarantee you, if you don't want to walk around the vendor hall and just randomly talk to someone, if you message somebody and say, hey, I'd like to meet with you and plan out your conference schedule, every vendor would respond in like seconds probably, and like, we'd love to meet with you, right? Like, so if you don't want to fly by the seat and just go with the flow, and you're like, I'd rather have a plan, I want to plan out like exactly when I can talk to these people, you take control as a property manager, right? And make that happen. And then all your time is filled, you're not bombarded by things you don't need. And you define it already, and then you go to the vendor booth later and you take all the swag from even the things you don't need.
You find your favorite vendor booth and you just hang out, right, April?
That's right. That's what we do.
No, but I think you made a really, important point there. Is like with my teams, I don't want to see them walking around like aimlessly with no plan, because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and the vibe of the show.
So easy.
And you totally forget about, what is the point? Why am I here? What is my purpose? So I think that's where we go back to, again, the Google Docs and reconnecting at the end of the day, and going in with the plan.
Especially if they're new to your team and they're younger, they might not be
You'll lose them.
You can see, I have talked to so many property managers that have they're like, they're like those little baby birds, they just don't know.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming.
Are you saying like you're like talking to like one person from the property management company and the new person's there, and then like like it's your family, right? So you talk to them, you go everything, and that person just looking at you like you're like, oh yeah, like, and you'd be like, hey, like that's valuable for them to hear the conversation, but it's also valuable, like maybe a new team member too. Like I think it'd be a cool idea, whether it's a vendor or PM, to be like, they're brand new. Maybe their goal is, I want you to go talk to 5 people that are a vendor and a PM, and I want you to give me like one takeaway from that conversation with them. That would be a great learning experience for someone new in the industry, and they really have to like figure things out. I really like that idea.
Yeah, even personal or professional. Like they could do a professional item and as well as a personal item, just because, like as you mentioned, really building those, or actually the trust really building those relationships.
We are an industry of relationships. Our industry is to make memories, and if we're going to make memories, we can't do it without having good relationships. So that's a goal. Is like, professionally, you're here obviously because we need to, lift up our company and maybe get some more products and get some ROI in here. But personally, if you're going to be in here, you there's a lot of integrity and trust, and you want to meet people that way that you can interact and connect on different levels. And they're like, probably 50% of my conversations yesterday were professional, 50% were personal on it. And I have already 3 mom drink dates for Darm. You gotta love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that makes it fun. And those things, don't put pressure on yourself if you're there and you're like, I don't even like professionally, where am I supposed to go with this? Go just have a conversation. It will organically happen. And I do find even like being in the industry and, as for this long and so many conferences I've gone to, there was a point yesterday. I remember like looking around and being like, I just need to walk up to somebody.
Mhm.
Like that was like, is kind of what it was. Like I had conversations and it was like, I think I just eaten and it was like a dull moment. And I was just like staring around. I'm just like, just go and say hi.
Right.
It's crazy the things that'll come up with it. And it's those weird things like you see movies where there's always like the random person like sitting outside of the circle and nobody wants to talk to them. That doesn't happen at conferences.
No.
If you want to just go and listen on somebody's conversation, they will open the circle and let you in.
Yeah, I think too, one other thing we mentioned yesterday, which I thought was a good takeaway, was, when you go to these sessions, you always remember that, as somebody who's presenting, they're giving you this general outline of what they're trying to, cast this wide net that will cover everybody that might be sitting in the room. But remember, we know that there's companies that are, 10 units. We know there's companies that are 500 units or whatever it might be that have different needs. So always go up and talk to them afterwards. Don't feel like you can't reach out to them. One thing that I mentioned yesterday is like, I know for us, if I've had somebody come up and ask me questions, even if they end up working with us or not, that's okay. I will be more than welcome to help them, walk them through, like, Facebook setup, whatever it might be that they needed some help with. And just because again, it goes back to the point we're making, it is that relationship of knowing that we're here for each other, we're here to support someone, especially if they are that little baby bird out of the nest for the first time. Or if not, maybe you just have a general question that you don't feel comfortable asking in front of everybody. And that goes back to, again, while you're sitting in the session, take a photo, write down the person's name, so then you can associate that person with it. That, oh, that's right, they were talking about this, and this is who they were, and this is what I wanted to ask them about. So I think that would be another good takeaway as you're sitting in sessions too. And that goes again for vendor or PM.
And at every session at the end, they're like, I have this session. If you want it, I'll send it over to you. I'd be happy to talk to you. I've done a couple sessions. I'm sure y'all can all say the same. Nobody reaches out after. I guarantee you, like I was saying earlier, the vendors, like that person would rather talk to you one-on-one than be public speaking.
Right.
Like, so don't be nervous to reach out to them. Like, they want to chat with you. They want to be there with you. It's an opportunity for them to help you learn and help them understand, like, maybe, what could I have done better for you, if for my next presentation, and whenever I'm delivering this information later. So that really is a great takeaway. We have about 4 minutes left. So why don't we go around, or is it, I was going to say, go around and talk about final thoughts. Is there anything else that we wanted to share before final thoughts, pre-final thoughts? Annie, you're right. Annie, what would be your final thoughts, takeaways, advice?
I think the thing that, again, going back to like the newbie, the new bird there, like I think we've all been in that mode. So you can kind of recognize that deer in the headlights when they're coming into a conference. But one thing that I found very useful is that if you have a booth and someone comes to your booth and you're not the right fit for them, don't try to make them the right fit for you, or you the right fit for them. But if you know somebody in the industry that would be a good fit with them, walk them over to that booth if they're there, or offer to make an introduction. That will go so far into just establishing you as a trusted brand with yourself. And I think just care and compassion. And I think that's what's great about vacation rentals is I've done the hotel side of it, and the hotel side of it is way stuffier and way more rigid. And vacation rentals, we are all just like on all the time. Like we are just on, and we're loving and we're caring. And I think COVID is just going to exacerbate that for the next shows. But don't be afraid to introduce to a competitor. It never hurts.
I love that. That's amazing advice. Thank you so much for getting that. Because and we all know it's like I one of our new revenue managers, she was there yesterday. I sat in the middle and she was like, what do all these people do? Because she's always like in the back end. And I went through and like, wow, I didn't know I knew all this. You do it and you find the newbie, tell them what they are, ask them who they want, and if you even go as far as you see somebody who is deer in headlights or kind of by themselves, or looking around kind of like wondering, go be like, hi, I'm Talia, can I help you?
Right.
So like, I'm not, the VRMA putting this on, but I can still help you.
Exactly.
What about you, Kim? What are your final
I think the fact that, networking is absolutely key to continue to push forward. At a conference, there's so much knowledge and everybody can use other people's knowledge to learn from. So grasp as much as you can, because you don't know if you're going to need that right then, but you're going to need it later at some point. So I try to collect, as many business cards as I can, talk to as many people about as many things. And I don't know, I may be having a housekeeping issue in 3 months. I may not have one right now, but maybe this person in the future is going to be able to help our company. So, just keep an open mind and learn. That's what conferences are for.
Yeah, exactly. And April, last but not least.
Well, I'll say if you are a vendor, especially if this is your first time, practice getting up at 6 a.m. and not going to bed till about 2 a.m. before a few weeks to a month before you go, and practice talking every day, all day, because your voice will need the warm up for it. So
notice I've been coughing after like one day.
Exactly. So I think that, and actually that goes the same for PMs too. Kim and I know we see each other a lot after hours. So, but I think that again, another point I would say would be utilize those vendors that maybe that is their expertise. So if you are looking for like housekeeping software or someone to help you with marketing, whatever it might be, utilize them and ask questions. That's what they're there for, is to help answer questions. So again, if you end up working with them or not, they're still going to be able to maybe put, like exactly what Andy mentioned, point you in the right direction, or at least give you some advice that maybe you hadn't previously thought about. And just always, again, pre-plan as best you can. Sit down, go over it, because it is overwhelming. Spend 10 minutes in your room before you go to dinner or whatever it might be, and just recoup, take a minute, take some notes, and then be ready to hit the nightlife and have some fun.
Absolutely. Oh God, that's the best advice. Like, yeah, like for some reason, like when you get to conferences, all of a sudden nobody needs to sleep. It's like the craziest thing in the world. Like, I'm the person who loves sleep. Like, you're there and you're like, I don't know, I forgot what that was.
True.
It was funny, like I got home like really late got 2 a.m. this morning, and I was like, just like you're at a conference. It's like you're at a conference. You might be home, but you can do this. Today. Well, this is awesome. You were listening, the recording, everything. I've got like ideas where we could do. I'm going to listen to this couple things, maybe make planning checklists we can give. Like, I think maybe we can turn this into a conference resource and reach out to you. And then if anyone is listening, if you see Annie, April, Kim, or myself, or anyone, if you recognize our faces, come talk to us. Obviously, we will not turn you away.
We're here to help.
We are here to help. Well, next week we will be talking about operations. So I'm excited about that one. Thank you, Annie, April, and Kim, for joining. This is been awesome. Y'all woken me up for the rest of the day. So this is what happens at conferences. Someone wakes you up around lunch, and that's how you get through the rest of the day.
Exactly. That's right.
Well, thanks, ladies. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.